I'll have you do it.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Mental Health Tips of the Week. I'm Allison, so I'm a mental health counseling student and the receptionist for our office at the Traveling Therapist. And this is Yalily Smith, owner of the Traveling Therapist and licensed clinical social worker.
Mm-hmm.
So today's tip of the week is just in time for the holidays. We're talking about the purpose of reflection. So we're going to talk about some goals for what you should be thinking about while you're sitting in your reflection time, as well as how to effectively do this with some tips and questions to ask yourself.
So to start, we want to share why learning self-reflection and learning to practice self-reflection as a regular practice is a positive thing for your life. And one of the things is, it brings an increase in your self-awareness, so you get to know yourself better. It also helps to change the way you see the world, so it increases your outlook, your positive outlook, so going from mostly negative to mostly positive. And then, of course, it's wonderful for managing stress. So those are essentially three of the many positive things that you would get from practicing self-reflection. And then how do you do self-reflection and what's the ultimate goal of self-reflection? I think the ultimate goal is to get to know yourself enough that you can have an honest conversation with yourself and you can challenge yourself, and the relationship, your internal relationship with who you are, doesn't become even worse than it probably already is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we are oftentimes in constant conversation with our internal selves. And not always is that person inside of us gentle or kind.
Often not.
And more often than that, it's more of an argument than a conversation. So one of the things that you want to think about is, okay, if I practice self-reflection, what is my goal? I think getting a better relationship with yourself is the ultimate goal that we could all aspire to. So, okay, Allison, help me out. Let's see what are some of the ways that we can practice self-reflection.
So practicing that self-reflection, I think a big part of knowing yourself is knowing your patterns. So we've talked a lot about catastrophizing, which is when you use like all or nothing words. So words like never or always, like I always do this to myself, or I'm never going to have this happen. And being able to notice when that's happening and notice that that's a pattern for yourself so that you can make things a little bit more realistic. Like instead of saying, I'm never going to get a promotion, think, okay, well, realistically, I might. But then you spend that time in self-reflection thinking, what are some of my challenges? How am I going to get there? So yeah, really that catastrophizing thing is a big component for me.
Okay. So to get there, an exercise that you can practice is taking time without social media, without electronics, by yourself, whether it's in your bathtub, whether it's in the shower, whether it's in bed, whether it's in your yard, wherever. Go to your favorite place, wherever. Take that few minutes to focus on sitting with your silence and asking yourself honestly questions, like exploratory questions of yourself. Like, for example, things like, how did I get to this point in my life? What are things that I feel that are missing in my life? Where do I find comfort and support whenever I feel down and whenever I feel maybe challenged or depressed or anxious? How much of the things that I consider a problem in my life are actually in my control? How much of it is really a problem? How much of it can I actually change right away? So having conversations with yourself, setting aside the time to have conversations with yourself where you are open to the answer, and it can get pretty uncomfortable. But this is not a time to belittle. It's not a time to criticize. It's just a loving, open conversation that you can have with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you're asking these questions too, really you're getting to the root of how realistic are these things that I'm feeling? Okay, do my feelings connect with the emotions that I'm having? Because when you can take that emotion out of it and think more realistically about what's happening, that does help to manage the stress so that you're taking bite-sized pieces and you're slowing down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Another tip, another exercise that you can do for self-reflection is you can stand in front of your mirror or any mirror. You can stand in front of it or sit in front of it, however you'd like. And you can speak to yourself the image on the reflected back in the mirror as if it was a friend. And if there are things that you've been struggling with, and I recommend this for my patients often whenever there's situations where you've been doing a lot of self-harm, or you've been purposely or consciously or unconsciously putting yourself in situations where you're going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. Whether it's dating the wrong people, whether it's befriending the wrong people, whether it's not eating right, whether it's not taking care of your body, your hygiene, etc., etc. So I recommend this. You sit in front of the mirror and you start by introducing yourself to the person. And you start talking to that to the reflection as if it was a friend. And that's where you get a chance to apologize if you've been self-harming or being careless with yourself. That's where you get a chance to reflect on what you wish you could do for that person. It gives you perspective. That's where you can talk about the past. So it's a very powerful exercise. It often leads to a lot of just strong emotions. There's a lot of tears because, again, we're going back to the purpose of reflection being all about getting to know yourself and rebuilding and establishing a relationship with yourself.
And I know that might feel a little bit silly at first, introducing yourself to yourself, but one of the things somebody said it to me once, if you wouldn't say it to your friend, why would you say it to yourself?
Yes.
And if you're looking at yourself in the mirror, I hope that you wouldn't say that to yourself when you can watch it like that.
Yeah.
So
another reason why you want the self-reflection, like we were mentioning, is the stress management aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happens is whenever you don't have control over your thoughts, it's so easy for even just everyday things to become so overwhelming. It's so hard to overcome. So especially when we talk about the holidays, for example, where emotions are really, really heavy and it's a time for reflection and reflecting is not always a good thing. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you learn to engage in self-reflection, then the better it is for you to manage your stress. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I have no control over my thoughts.
You have more control than you realize.
So think about it this way. You are not a brain that tells a body what to do every day. You are a sentient being. You are a human being who happens to have an organ called the brain. Most of us think our brain somehow just controls everything And yes, on a chemical sense, yes, it's like a computer, but not on a conscious subconscious sense, not on a existential sense. On an existential sense, we are the ones who are in control. Like the human, top to bottom, is the one that's in control. So we start by recognizing, and this is actually what we'll call this tip number 3. Self-reflection can start with something as simple as your senses. Take a moment at any point in your day to focus on what are you perceiving? What do you see? What do you taste? What do you touch? What do you hear? What do you smell? Just in whatever moment you are. You can be eating. This is really good for when we're eating or when we're laying in bed or things like that. Let's say that you're eating something. Stop and reflect on, what am I tasting? What is the texture? So what am I touching? What is the texture? What is the smell? How does it sound? Is it a crunchy? Is it soft? Am I slurping? Am I is there something going on in the background that's cooking? I don't know, things like that. Use your senses to start connecting with yourself in that way. And start to understand, we start our relationship with our brain through our senses first. And those are tangible. And then from there, what we experience with the senses, that's the emotion. And then we tell our brain, this is how I want to feel about this. This is how I want to experience this. This is how I want to store this.
So it's not just immediately going to I'm having a negative thought, I need to control it and make it a positive thought. No, it's increasing that awareness so that you get to choose what you want to feel in that moment. You get to choose what you want to do, how you want to move forward. And I think that increasing that self-awareness of your senses too, it helps you to slow down so that in stressful times, you know what that feels like. And I was thinking another question to ask yourself, and we can add this kind of to our tips, is where are your priorities? So of all of these stressful things that are happening to you, you asked, well, how do I want to start? What do I have control over? Well, yeah, where do you want to start? What are the things that are most important to you right now that you're noticing?
Right. So that would be tip number 4. Where do I want to start? What am I noticing? And I think the final thing that I want to use as a tip is practicing what we call just complete acceptance. There's a word for it. It's like a whole type of therapy. It's oh my gosh. It's I'm sure if a therapist is watching this, feel free to write in the comments.
I'm still learning.
She's still learning. But it's just this concept of complete acceptance. And what that means is completely accept in that moment whatever thought comes to you.
That doesn't mean it has to be a happy thought.
And it doesn't mean that you have to do anything about it. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a feeling about it. Remember that your thoughts don't necessarily have to transmute themselves into feelings. Not every thought that we have billions of thoughts every single day, if not trillions. Something like billions or trillions, something insane like that. We think a lot, and women more than men. So we think a lot. Not every single thought has to be a feeling. So stop, take the thought in, and just accept it. Look at it almost curiously. This is interesting. I wonder why I came up with that thought. Where did it come from? What's the purpose of it? Or if you don't even want to take that sort of time, or if you're worried that it's going to turn into a feeling, then just let it come and let it go. But just accept the thoughts as they are. Most of the time, thoughts are simply moments of awareness, situational awareness. You can be thinking of something. I have to go to the grocery store. for example, and the thought is, what am I going to make for dinner? You don't have to have a feeling about that. It's okay. It's okay to just acknowledge that you had that thought and let it go. Whatever it is that I bring up from the grocery store, I don't know, something like that. So that's the last one, is just practice having just that complete acceptance of the thought as it comes without needing to tie it to a feeling, without needing to label it, without needing to act upon it, just allowing it to come, curiously acknowledging it, and then letting it go. And all of these tips and all of these exercises are essentially the type of things that you would start just seconds at a time.
Oh yeah, you don't need to sit down and do all this for 30 minutes. That's a lot. I can't sit down and be with my thoughts for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I can go outside and spend 30 seconds to a minute just thinking what's going on in my head.
Yeah. Sometimes I will literally just be doing something and a thought pops up and I'm like, where the heck did that come from? And then I like take a second to consider it and I'm like, that's kind of a weird thought. Where did it come from? Why did it
Where did it go, Cotton Eye Joe?
What am I tying to this? And then I'm just like, okay, well, it's fine. And then I just let it go.
My favorite time to do it is before I'm going to bed, because especially if I'm having thoughts that I don't understand, it puts me to sleep.
Yes, because your brain's like, okay, let's just shut down.
But that's also a good time to do, like you were talking about with the senses, because you can just kind of lay there and just go scan your body.
Yes.
Like, you can focus on the touch one more of like, what am I feeling in my head, in my neck, in my shoulders, and kind of work your way down to your toes. And then that just gets to a point that it relaxes you so much and it increases that awareness. And that builds up that habit for you to be aware of your body.
Yeah. Okay, so to wrap it up, because I know these ones are quick, short. And also, by the way, I'm going to get Allison to write on the description the name of the therapeutic practice that I can't remember right now.
I will be doing more research.
Okay, to wrap it up, why do we want to practice reflection? We want to practice reflection because it increases our self-awareness. It changes our outlook in life to something more positive, or at least more neutral, and is great for stress management. And as we practice them, we have our tips that we can go back to, and we will enumerate the tips on the video and in the description, and feel free to use them. And while we're talking about this, are we doing the monthly challenge on this video or next video?
Yeah, let's do it on this video. Let's take some time to reflect. So we discussed you can do this anytime, anywhere. That is entirely up to you and what you value. But we would like to see, where do you choose? If you choose to do it outside, if you choose to do it in your bed, at your dining room table, at work, while you're driving. We want you to take a picture.
Not while you're driving. Don't go into self-reflection where you can't even focus on the road. So let's not drive and do this.
You can be in your car, but don't be
stationary.
Driving while you do it. Yes.
Somewhere where you're stationary.
Yes.
Take a picture of the place. We don't want to see you. We want to see the place where you reflected. And if you notice something weird, like if something came up that you were not expecting and you'd like to share it, we'd like to see that. And if you do that, you're part of our reward program for the traveling therapist. So you would be a client of ours, part of the reward program. Share it on our social media. You will also see that on the description. And we'll get you points towards rewards so you can get goodies.
I'll be creating a social media post that will have a picture that says, post your monthly challenge here. And then you can just go into the comments and post your pictures in there for us. If you're doing it on Instagram, I don't think you can attach a picture. So for that, if you want to post your own picture and then tag us. But on Facebook, you can attach your picture right into the comments.
Yes, and we do still use Facebook. It's for business purposes. Yes, we are kind of old too, but mostly for business purposes. Okay. thank you so much for joining us for the Mental Health Tip of the Week. And we really hope that this has helped you. And we hope to see you very soon through your comments, through your pictures, through your social media posts. And as always, if you have questions, share them with us. If you have suggestions, share them with us. And have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Bye.
Bye.